Hello everybody, my name is Kamalpreet and my other teammates are Bhumish, Kevin and Prasad, and our topic is privacy and security now versus 2030. So we all seem to be using social media network these days, be it for entertainment, professional use or just being in contact with your friends. It has become an inseparable part of our lives. So moving to our first definition, which is social media. Social media, it's a form of electronic communication which comprises of websites and application that enables us to create and share content, ideas, pictures or videos. And next is social networking. It is a platform used to build social networks with people who have same interest or background, or you can just add a friend you know from work or school. So the next thing we have is privacy. So privacy is the most fundamental human right, which means the right to be left alone. So in terms of social media, privacy means sharing your data information with anybody you seem appropriate. So it's an aspect of security, and life without privacy would be hell because anybody can have access to your information and you'll be very vulnerable. Moving on to security on social media. So, security means state of being free from danger or threat. So, in terms of social media, it means protecting your data by different means. The next topic is social media now versus 2030. So we can never be absolutely certain about what future might hold for us, but in today's world, social media networking isn't any less of a hype when tends to talk about the future. Social media networking is something that supposedly will change completely and will be nothing like now. In today's world, people and companies seem to be working on all sorts of technological advancements of of which some of them might have drastic implications in terms of social media networking. These technological advancements might change the way people connect with each other nowadays. An example of one such technological advancement can be Google Glass or the Google Lens. This piece of technology is still under progressive work but intends to be integrate augmented reality in real time with our world, which means that we could be looking at an insect and be able to give us all the information about it. This could be the integration of the world of social networking as well. We'll be able to send and receive messages and be able to read them as if they were floating in the thin air. So we might as well be able to connect with strangers as they past us based on our mutual interests. The implications of technological advancement in the world of social media are numerous in number. So, social media platforms, which are the most famous nowadays, like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, looking into the future by 2030, these social media platforms, such might like Orkut, might being run out of fashion. This is popular social media platform might have a change. We could be using some other social media platforms which might bring us things differently than how are they now.
Hello, we're going to discuss about the impacts of social media on privacy and security. What do we people think about the online privacy? It's about private matter, right? We don't want our personal information to let out on social media. But that's not only in our hands, it's also in our friends' hands and our relatives. So whenever we get our new accounts in social media, what do? We have to find friends, right? So for finding friends, what do we do is allow the social medias to access our contacts from our contact in our phone. So what we do is, because of that, not only our information, even our friends' information gets into the social media, hands of social media. So similarly, when our friends wants to find some friends, so even they allow access from their contact, and by which even our private information is let into the social media. So again, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So by keeping our private information is not only in our hands, it's all in other hands. So the social platforms ability to collect and curate this extra information is called shadow profiles. Like whenever you allow your accessing your information, that Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, they collects the information of yours without even without your knowledge. So this is called shadow profiling, and this was being came to notice by Facebook in 2012 by a bug. So and that has led to outbreak of various amounts of phone number of the persons who were using Facebook. Now, when people share most of their personal information, it is not only leading to the face social sites to just accumulate their personal information. They're even able to figure out their characteristics. For example, their choices of food and their choices of color and dressing and all those stuffs. A researcher found out using the more we get our personal information to social media, the more our knowledge and the more our choices are and our information is getting into personal media, and more of our private information is getting to personal media. So right now, privacy is something that cannot be same for everyone and can be defined in exact terms. So everyone has different terms or different levels and limits of privacy in their own personal life, and that can be the same for everyone, and that depends on every individual and case to case basis. And to conclude, that we are no longer in full control of our privacy. So then this problem is for everyone who is using social media, or it's for none. So it is not depending on one person, and we can't control our privacy of our data anymore. Now let's discuss about the impact of compromised privacy and security on personal relationships and jobs. Social media has always had a huge impact on how relationships grow and sustain. In earlier days, when we are like 1,000 miles apart, it's impossible to have a contact and maintain a relationship. But right now, with the advancement of social medias, we can, no matter in which part of the world we are, we can able to make relationships and be in touch with each other. But this has its own cons as well. When a person is giving their personal information to you, trusting you in your relationship, and when you have a compromised privacy or security in your social media, that could get leaked and go viral sometimes. We have lots of exposures that a lot of personal information becoming viral in the Facebook or Twitter. So this could really have a very bad outcome on the relationships. When we relate this to the professional setting, a survey found that out of 2,300 professionals, 40% of them use the online profile or online medium to screen out their applicants. It's funny, isn't it? It has been a survey also stated that more than 70% of the recruiters use their candidates' Facebook profile to screen out the applicants rather than using LinkedIn, which is quite funny. And when you post lots of private information or your personal information into the social media, that could have an impact on your professional careers as well. By compromising privacy and security, the things which has to be private or which has to be in your part of mind and which is not supposed to be in public or in your workplace, now it is available to the employers, which may hinder your growth as professionally, and which may even get you depressed. It is also found that the people under the age of 30 are mostly involved in social media, and the people who are more than 30 are seldom using the social media, or they are using it on a very limited basis. It's a groundbreaking research, but still. So better be confident about the social media profiles and privacy concerns.
Hello everyone, my name is Bhumesh Patel, and I'm gonna discuss today about the impact of social media on privacy and security in 2030, and and how it will affect the international relations and issues. Okay, so before we talk about how social media will affect the privacy and security in 2030 and how it will affect the international relations, let's just go a bit behind in the 90s when there was no social media. Like there were some social media sites available, but the social media got highlighted to the world only when Mark Zuckerberg launched Facebook in 2004. Following that, many other social media platforms such as Twitter, Snapchat, uh, also some platforms on Google like Google Plus were introduced, and this entire social media thing brought a shift in the way the world communicates, how they socialize, how it also brought a change in the way the world do their business. It also brought changes in the geopolitics. Many countries had to bring new rules, laws to control the social media sites from collecting data. Talking about collecting the data in the recent events, like we all know how this CEOs of the various social media platforms were called uh, in US to present their companies point to the Congress about how they collect the data from the users and how do they protect it. And if we talk about the present time, if the collection of data is such a big issue, we can imagine what issue it would be in the future, especially in 2030. So we discussed about how the social media sites have been collecting data, and let's just move a bit towards the political side of this. The For example, in the recent years, we have seen how the social media was involved in bringing the political revolutions. Now, everyone has a platform to raise their voice, concerns against the injustice that they have been facing. For example, it's the Arab Spring. The the way the people use Twitter, YouTube, and other social media sites to raise their voice against the governments. They want to bring an end to the oppressing behavior of their government. Now, as we saw how they are still continuing to fight against this oppression, we can now discuss how social media can affect the global politics, national and international security in 2030, and will it compromise the privacy and security, leading to any sort of international crisis by 2030? So, in a report called Global Trends 2030, which was presented by National Intelligence Council in the United States, um, it represented the views of many professors, researchers, students of the various universities in the United States, and they came across this viewpoint that West will decline in global power and East will rise. That means the Asia will be the new giant, and China alone will have the largest economy, and they will have the largest number of users on internet, and obviously those users will be using the social media platforms. The report also stated that China has a promising artificial intelligence program which they wish to expand by 2030, and this shift in the power will bring a lot many changes in the international relations. The report discussed how China censors the internet for its users, how it collects the data, and how it monitors the activity of its citizens. Now, in the West, people are more inclined to the privacy and security. They don't want their governments to um, store information or collect data, their personal data, from the social media platforms. But now, since there will be a power change, the countries in the West, in the name of security, would need to take some measures to counter the adversaries. So there will be a threat to the cybersecurity and especially the privacy and security of the user's data, and hence it was concluded that cybersecurity will be one of the key issues in 2013. The report also stated that the storage and processing of large quantities of data, social networking technologies, and the smart cities will be the key issues in the 2013, where and the governments will have to pass new legislations to make sure that the users' data is not misused by any private entity or even by the government. So, uh, in the report, it was mentioned about the power change, how the worlds will change in 2030. But what about privacy? The word privacy was only mentioned in one of the paragraphs of the report, and it stated that by 2030 there will be a complex trade-offs that users of social media will have to make. In another article called titled as social media surveillance will help the government to read the mind of its citizens. It was mentioned that um, today the people are more inclined towards utility rather than their privacy. They don't mind allowing the social media giants use their data because they want to get socialized and they don't care about their data being misused. But there will be a change by 2013 now, and people will now move towards more about privacy and security rather than the utility of these platforms. Therefore, the social networking services will be more relevant to users rather than their own profits. So the changes will take place by 2030 where the users will control what they want to see, what they don't want to see, what they want to share, and they will be rather more aware about this technology or this and how the social media can misuse their data and what how to take measures, personal measures rather, to prevent any kind of breach in their privacy and security. I came across an article called International Relations in 2030, which explained the impact of social media on politics in 2030. So it says that by 2030, many users will add up to the social media platforms and it will give more power to the people to raise their voices, concerns against the governments. So this could be a problem sign for the dictators but in 2030 because people as we know that many countries try to censor the internet in their countries and by 2030 it would not be possible for them to do so because people will be more aware about things and they would not like their governments to censor the internet anyway. So this will bring revolution changes in the governments and this could might be a threat to the world peace, but these changes are bound to happen and social media will play a great role in politics in 2030. So, in the report presented by National Intelligence Council, it was discussed how social media would be used as a medium to spread the extremist propaganda and how it will play a key role in maintaining the cybersecurity. As the report already stated, that many new users would be added to the social media platforms by 2030, and if the such terrorist outfits use this platform to spread their propaganda. They can influence a large number of people. In order to prevent such things, the international community needs to come together and pass resolutions in the United Nations for the cybersecurity, as they have mentioned in the report that internet would be the modern battlefield and world cannot risk another war just because of the internet and social media. So it has to be used carefully, and the privacy and security on social media should always be maintained by the governments and the private parties who run these social media platforms. um, this would help to maintain the peace in the world. Now, in the following presentation, we would discuss about how the steps should be taken in order to maintain our privacy and security on social media in 2030. So let's move to that part, and I hope you learned a lot about the international relations and problems in 2030 because of the use of social media. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin, and I will be presenting on what will be the problems relating to privacy and security on social media in 2030 and what one can do to avoid those problems. Like, will social media privacy survive till 2030? I think this is the most difficult question to answer right now. But according to me, in 2030, there will be no social media privacy and security, and your personal information will become some sort of currency. Because this is because of the new technologies that are coming in the market, and they have raised a lot of questions of privacy and security both online and offline. Yeah, for example, like Internet of Things can gather data from our home cities and institutions. Other examples are like drones and virtual reality headsets. Today, people don't consider social media's privacy and security as important because, like, they don't even think twice before agreeing to the terms and conditions of some random social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, Google, and any other website. Some great people had taught us to protect our personal information on social media as much as possible. So I think we should start taking social media privacy and security important and read the terms and conditions before agreeing to them. So moving on, by 2030, almost everyone in the world will have internet access. All the actions of the people on social media will be tracked and stored. It might happen that people would pay for the privacy in future to avoid such tracking and storage of their data. It might become a luxury and will be afforded by very few. The term privacy would completely change in 2030 because of no matter what steps you take or what actions you take to protect your identity online, that will not be enough. But there are simple tools that can help us. For example, Crypto Matter that encrypts the files on both ends, that is, the files that are stored on the Dropbox servers and the files that are stored on your laptop. If a Dropbox employee to try to access your data or try to see your data, he would see nothing. And similarly, if a person gains physical access of the laptop, like, he would see nothing. Only you have the ability to unlock the files. There will be some social media sites that will offer more privacy and security, but due to lack of convenience, people would not prefer to use that, and vice versa. So, surveillance and you. Many governments have set up private surveillance system and they spy on the citizens in name of national security. People will start to exchange their privacy or allow their surveillance in exchange of some lucrative services or money, as I mentioned before. This cannot be avoided unless we increase advocacy and education efforts right now. We have to explain people how important the social media privacy and security is. For instance, in March, the US House of Representatives voted to allow internet service providers to sell your web browsing history on the open market. I don't think so. This was a good idea because if that information gets into wrong hands, and the people might misuse it, and that would affect a lot of people. The picture perfectly explains the situation of a person in 2030. So moving on, in 2030, people would look for a balance between privacy and transparency. People would prefer openness of information through mechanisms like blockchain. According to Danny Witzner, who is the director of MIT Internet Policy Research Initiative, the government will pass certain rules that would require companies to inform people how and where they are using the personal information of people. I think this would be a great initiative to stop misuse of the personal information of the people. This is because the business data would not stop. So the best option is to keep control of spying by these organizations. That's what we can do. So, to conclude, it would be next to impossible to protect personal information on social media in 2030. More efforts and resources will be invested by the government in cybersecurity in 2030. Private information will become a valuable asset of the people. So, people should be educated on how they can try to protect their personal information. An example of that is people should be encouraged to use crypto matter that encrypts the files on both the ends, that is on the Dropbox servers and on your personal laptop. The shift in power will require more stringent rules and regulations to be in place by 2030. This is, for example, like companies will have to disclose um, where they're using private information of the people and where how they're using it. And finally, people will prefer privacy or convenience in 2030. This means that people will use those social media sites that offer more privacy and security of their personal data rather than those that are offering more convenience. So these are some of the references that we used. More references that we used. Some more references that we used. And this is the final list of references that we used. Thank you for watching our presentation. We hope that you learned in detail regarding the social media privacy and security in 2013 and what one can do to protect their personal information or data on social media sites. Also, we hope that you will start taking social media privacy and security more seriously from today. Thank you.